Hello and welcome to the B11 Book Club for the month of February 2018. I'm Tyler and I am here with the Bookmaster, also known as Sam.
Thank you. I'd consider you the Bookmeister.
Thank you, but I'm actually the Book God.
Oh,
So, Sam and I have been doing some research and we've stumbled across a gem. Um, Now, we have only been able to find pieces of this novel, but we would like to release it, and we're going to play an audiobook excerpt that we're working on for the 8th chapter. There's also a preface by John Steinbeck, the writer, and the author is P.T. Simmons. Sam, would you like to give them a little bit of information on the author, P.T. Simmons?
of course. As we were saying earlier, she's a little bit elusive. But it seems P.T. Simmons, at the time of writing, was a middle-aged woman from Fargo, North Dakota.
Wow, that's very interesting. Thank you, Sam. Would you like to talk a little bit about the period of P.T. Simmons' life as she was researching and preparing to write this novel?
Good question, Tyler. As you might well know, P.T. Simmons was a bit of a lonely woman. She was legally married to a cactus. The marriage did not last, but it provided inspiration for her to write this book. And afterwards, it was kind of a whirlwind for her, mainly because there was a tornado that hit her house.
Oh, just simply incredible.
Mm.
Simply incredible. So yes, join us this month in our B11 book club. Again, this is February 2018. Just in time for Valentine's Day.
Yes,
We
I believe
have this.
we're releasing it on Valentine's Day.
Well, of course. I mean, we had to do it. It was
Yeah.
quite novel.
Ha, ha,
Pardon the wordplay.
ha.
Um,
You should write a joke book.
oh, I'm not quite that hysterical. Though some say I am about as funny as President Barack Obama. Sorry, just a little joke there.
Jokes.
So please venture into the world and enjoy this audiobook rendition of excerpts from the preface and portions of the novel Private I Love You by P.T. Simmons.
Enjoy.
It is quite infrequent such a piece of literary masterpiece finds its way across my desk that I am intrigued as such. My first encounter with Private I Love You was in a train terminal on my travels to Kalamazoo, Michigan, to research animal sex trafficking for the third installment of my Wapes series. When, alas, from the corner of my eye I caught a glimpse of a fowl forced to have relations with an oxen. Just past this breathtaking display was a short, smut novel stand being peddled to the audience. At first I was appalled my Wapes of Grath was not being prioritized at such an establishment. Nearly adjacent to a particularly graphic copy of the Chameleon Sutra, I found Private I Love You by P.T. Simmons. At first, I began to read simply as a distraction from the primal mating cries of various water mammals, but within moments I was engrossed. Such vivid imagery, such pacing, such pageantry never could be found in a novel before this, and probably none henceforth. The plot, as thick as a clam basil bisque I delighted upon Morocco, 1876, with twists like my stomach after eating said bisque. God truly has enlightened the marvelous P.T. as a gifted scholar and Aphrodite, From the moment I finished the novel, I knew nothing I would do henceforth would be the same. I read it again, and a third, and 68 times I read this novel. I would read it only once more, on my deathbed. My philosophy on what true artistic literature could be was changed the moment I read this novel. It was at the climax of the tale I knew. This would be the climax of my career. After returning home with souvenirs for my then ailing mother, she quite enjoyed the bobble-headed canary drinking from an elephant's anus. I put down the quill. It was over my career. I would never write again. Now, I write this preface to the second edition of Private I Love You, lying here waiting for the fates to cut the string of my fading soul as the plights of Lisa and Kevin carry me away to Hades. Enjoy this novel, nay, drink in the philosophical elegance of this truly courageous and artistic work, for the lives of man and country should be changed with exposure to this near-biblical masterpiece. It is beauty. It is pain. It is God. It is Private I Love You. John Steinbeck.
Private I Love You, Chapter 8. The Funeral of Love. Rain, streaming and mixing with the tears of friends and family of the deceased. It also turns into a salty liquid soup, mixing with the clammy hand sweat encapsulated in mine and Kevin's palms. It's invigorating, the pain of loss, bouncing through the congregation like the rain off of Kevin's glistening abs. The inevitability of the circle of life as inevitable as Kevin's tongue sliding down my throat in the bishop's chamber.
Harvey Dent was a great man,
The Pope said, genuflecting out onto the crowd.
I knew him as a child, roaming the Vatican in search for spare change or bread to give his dying great-grandaunt. I remember looking him in the eyes and saying, "No." He was ashamed and turned his eyes to God. When he was 18, he spoke of helping the world find God's justice by becoming the partner to the private detective and his oldest friend, Kevin.
His name. We both heard it, but we were too preoccupied staring into each other's eyes to say anything. No one knew where we were. No one. Except Harvey. I could feel his spirit or soul or ghost or whatever watching over us. A voyeuristic specter of approval. The passion was palpable. Like the orange juice we shared at breakfast. I never wanted to leave that chamber of lust, but I had a hunger that needed to be filled. Just as we had taken our seats in the back row, communion arrived. My hunger sated and Kevin's abs still glistening, we turned our gaze forward. This weak heart of mine started to fill with dread. Would I ever see Kevin again after this? Would I ever see that relentless posterior of his again? Anguish filled my soul, but it did not have long to ruminate, as a loud interruption disturbed the mourning congregation. Scores of police entered the papal chambers, biceps flexing and eyes penetrating like the male strippers at Carol's bachelorette party. Officer Eefcake sauntered over to my beloved Kevin, placing his sculpted rump on the heavenly chair betwixt my lover and I.
Hey.
Barely audible to me over the wailing cries of ride on in majesty sung by the choir.
I know your secret. I don't know what you're talking about, Brent.
Kevin replied, a soured expression revealing on his face.
This is a funeral. Please be respectful, you dirty pig.
I could see his discomfort growing with the subtle contractions of his abdomen.
Here's how this is going down. I know you killed Harvey, Kevin. Your fingerprints were all over the gun, and it was registered under your name.
Kevin's expression shifted from defensive and upset to surprised, defensive and upset.
We're going to let you finish out this funeral out of respect for the Pope and Harvey's family. But then, you're going to get in the police car, and we're hauling your murdering ass into prison.
The officer moved in closer, the tendrils of his mustache enveloping Kevin's ear. I couldn't help but to imagine Brent's slimy, no-good tongue sliding into Kevin's ear as he finished with,
"You hear me, pal?"
As the police force slowly exited the church, Kevin looked flabbergasted, the saliva in his ear still glistening. He was in a state of horror and shock. I put my hands on his chiseled jaw and turned his head until our eyes met again, like in the bishop's chamber, but this time the sweat was not going to be from our love, but from our escape. My hand slowly dropped, and I ever so gently whispered, "Let's go." As we slowly stood up, trying not to attract the attention of the many mourners before us, slowly making our way to the back of the church, Kevin gave one last glance back. A single tear rolled down his cheek. We approached the exit only to find the waves of police officers still surrounding the outside of the church. We had to come up with a plan and come up with one fast. Otherwise, it would be more than a few inches that separated us. Suddenly, something caught Kevin's eye. He whispered,
"Look, we can escape through the air vent, but it's going to be a tight squeeze."
Kevin grabbed me by the arm and pulled me in after him, gently but forcefully, the way he liked to make love. I could smell the church air ventilating from the chapel. The smell of sadness overtook me once more. What if this really were the end? What if they took my Kevin to prison for a crime only I could verify he didn't commit? No, I couldn't let that be the case. I followed his godly behind into the air shaft. After we had traversed the vent to the back of the church, silently reveling in each other's presence, Kevin stopped.
"I think we're here,"
Kevin stated, slowly opening the cover into a room I couldn't see.
"This will lead us into the bell tower. We can make our escape from there."
Kevin gingerly lifted me from the air vent, carefully navigating my supple bosom.
"Now,"
he said, glancing out the fourth-story window.
we wait.
The police grew more and more suspicious as the occupants of the funeral trickled out of the church. I could see the grotesque form of Eve Cake's furrowed upper lip from here. As the night grew long, Kevin just held me tighter. Eventually, the police, exhausted by their search, slowly left the holy ground. Kevin stood up with a look of determination in his eyes like the night of our first kiss. He grabbed his unused shirt and said,
"Jump on."
With a squeal, I leaped onto his muscled back and we jumped off the tower, his crisp shirt acting as a parachute. We landed on the road nearest to the church, the street lights our only guide.
"Well, I don't think Officer Beefcake is going to like us being on the lam."
I chuckled nervously, knowing this was just the beginning. I had no idea when we met at my yoga studio that fateful day I would have to go undercover with the love of my life to expose the Russian mafia and prove his innocence. There, on the side of the road, was just the beginning. But staring into his beautiful blue eyes, I knew everything was going to be just fine.